Newly released emails as part of a report show that the DHS under Donald Trump attempted to manufacture a panic about Antifa protesters despite knowingly having no evidence that the people they were investigating, demonizing, and in some cases actually locking up were actually members of Antifa. We're gonna show you a picture of this email here. You're probably not gonna be able to make out much of it at this scale. But it basically says, we want you to begin designating the people you round up as Antifa, even though there's no evidence that they are ascribed to an Antifa ideology or that Antifa is an organization at all. They just desperately wanted to have it. This report shows that descriptions of orders being handed down to senior leadership instructed them to broadly apply the label violent Antifa anarchists inspired to Portland protesters unless they had intel showing something different, which I just want to point out, I know that few people watching this are probably intelligence analysts. That is not how this is supposed to work. You can't just declare that everyone in Portland you arrest is a member of Hydra unless there's a compelling alternative explanation. The evidence is supposed to prove who they are. That's the whole point. But it's clear that this was goal-oriented. The Trump organization, the DHS under Trump, liked the idea of this being Antifa. They liked the idea that Antifa was a thing. They were constantly putting their attention and trying to show that there was some sort of centralized financing network for Antifa protesters, even though they could never see any evidence of that. And so look, there are a lot of stuff that happened during those roundups of protesters, especially in Portland, that maybe is more immediate, more important than just how they were categorized. But the complete lack of interest and accuracy in how they were identifying these protesters is really scary. And remember, these same people might be in power once again in just a couple of years. Dan, what do you think?
That's the thing that scares me the most about this, is that they've shown that their willingness to do things the business way, which is their dirty business way of, let's see how we can cook the books. Let's see how we can figure out these numbers here, which goes against, the law, where you're supposed to prove people guilty, but until then they're innocent, where they have rights, where you can't just say, will be a lot more convenient for me politically as a president to have this narrative out there about people who are being arrested. So let's just paint the narrative like it is, rather than, or paint the narrative like I would prefer it to be rather than the reality.
Yeah.
Generally, the conservatives are supposed to be against the whole Orwellian 1984. You have one leader who tells everyone how things are, who changes the rules kind of thing. But they literally never will ever mind it if it's someone on their own side, especially if it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, 100%. And let's just point out that I'm sure there were some people that would call themselves Antifa. But it is always the case when Democrats or anyone left of center protests, one of the things that makes it more difficult sometimes for us to achieve our goals is we don't all think the exact same way. We don't all pursue the exact same goals. We don't follow the exact same leaders or organizations. There is actual diversity of thought, so much so that sometimes, again, it makes it difficult for us to accomplish our goals. That isn't good enough for the regime. They want to be able to just point to one monolithic enemy that they can demonize. And at the same time, can we also acknowledge that it's kind of ridiculous that according to them, everyone who opposes them is anti-fascist? That's the one organizing characteristic. If you don't like me, you're probably against fascism. That's a really interesting tell from the DHS there.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.